Hello everybody, Leonidas here, and as someone who's been playing Commander now for a few years, but hasn't quite lost touch with his roots, I figure I'm in the perfect position to tell you about the top 10 commanders for beginners. Let's get into it. Number 10 on my list is Teysa Karlov. Teysa is a 2/4 human advisor that casts for 2 white/black with the abilities that read, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time, and creatures you control have vigilance and lifelink. The reason I picked Teysa for this spot is that she's a very simple aristocrats commander, currently only costing about $1.30 on Card Kingdom USD. She is pretty much the optimal commander for playing an aristocrats deck for your first time, and building the deck's fairly easy. You run cards like Cruel Celebrant and Blood Artists, and Pitiless Plunderer to get mana. Skullclamp is an almost need-to-have card. Same thing with Revel in Riches. You get option to some really powerful cards that work in this deck specifically, like Alenda the Dusk Rose, and even Anointed Procession works, as well as all just the cards that create tokens upon death, like anything with Afterlife. Ministrant of Obligation works, or anything that just gets value on death, such as Vindictive Lich, Wormcoil Engine, any of the Kamigawa Dragons. This is a fairly easy deck to build, with even creatures that are in here that can give you some good ramp, like Burnished Heart. Burnished Heart sacrifices itself when you activate the ability, meaning all your Blood Artist triggers go off, Pitiless Plunderer would go off, Alenda would go off, and even such powerful removal cards such as Ashen Rider. Sure, it costs 8, but it's very powerful. Or even something like Bone Splinters you wouldn't normally get to run in a deck. You get to run in this deck. It's cheap, can be at least. It's easy to build, and can be assembled pretty quickly. I feel like this is a pretty easy deck to build. The secret to Teysa is that she's a good commander because she has 2 paths that link together, meaning you can go for a hyper-specified deck. Death triggers that create tokens. Something dying and tokens are the 2 things she loves doing. She boosts your tokens, she boosts your death triggers, which is why she's fairly easy to build. You don't have to worry about having all the cards you need to pick between. You only have to worry about making sure a card fits into at least one, if not both, for 2 mechanics. Number 9 on the list can be a bit more tricky to build, but is a little simpler to play, and that is Nekusar the Mind Razor. Nekusar is a 2/4 zombie wizard that costs 2 blue, black, red, with the abilities, at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card, and whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar the Mind Razor deals 1 damage to that player. So, why did I pick Nekusar for this list? First off, you can buy him for only $5.99 USD on Card Kingdom if you want the actual card, but you can get the oversized card for just 49 cents. Sure, legally you have to own the real card to play the oversized card, but most playgroups wouldn't care, especially if you're a new player. His 2 abilities are pretty much the same thing. It's just have people draw cards and use that card draw to do damage to them. So you can run a lot of good cards like Ashiok, or even the new Ob Nixilis is going to be very powerful, stacking those triggers. You can run cards like Dictate of Crewfix that make them draw even more cards, Kami of the Crescent Moon to make them draw even more cards. Then you get to look into running cards such as pretty much any of the Niv Mizzets to do more damage to them. The Locust God to turn card draw really into just 1/1 creatures. You can run counterspells such as Dream Fracture, which make you and the opponent draw a card. Costs just as much as a cancel. And you can even run cards such as Forced Fruition, which whenever an opponent plays a spell they have to draw 7 cards. That's not even taking into account cards like Grafted Exoskeleton, which you throw onto Nekusar, and all of the damage he's doing now becomes poison. Nekusar can be a very, very powerful commander to build around, and it's fairly simple. Though some of the cards can get pricey, it's a fun deck, and can be fairly simple for new players to grasp onto. Number 8 on our list is the Locust God. The Locust God is a 4/4, god that costs 4 blue red with the abilities, whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. 2 blue red, draw a card, then discard a card, and when the Locust God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. And the Locust God has flying. So what do these abilities want to do? His middle ability lets you draw a card and discard a card. Standard loot. And his top ability lets you turn any card draws into 1/1 insect creatures with flying and haste. So they're going to be able to get in and do a bunch of damage. You can draw a bunch of cards. And his last ability simply makes it where whenever he would die, you just put him back in hand and you can just cast him again for 6. You don't have to worry about commander attacks. Why did I choose Locust God? Looking as though he costs $11.99 USD on Card Kingdom right now as the cheapest you can get him. He doesn't seem that friendly cost-wise to new players. However, he is extremely simple to build around. Being only 2 colors, the mana base can effectively be simple to build, and being focused around card draw, you get to run such powerful creatures as pretty much any of the Niv Mizzets. You get to run Argent. Whenever you cast a spell, you just pitch your hand, draw. You get to run cards like Blue Sun Zenith or Laboratory Maniac as an extra win condition. There are so many ways to play this card, but they're all going back to the main mechanic of draw cards, hit for a lot with insects. It might even be worth it to run Metallic Mimic, choosing insects so that they all become 2/2. There are a million ways to build this deck, and each being just as interesting, but still falling fairly close in line to Nekisar, which is why I'm not going to go too much into this deck list. Number 7 on our list is Arkadys the Strategist. Arkadys is a 3/5 Elder Dragon that costs 1 green, white, blue, with flying and vigilance, and the abilities that read, whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, and each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So, just by reading these couple abilities here on Arkadys, you automatically know how to build the deck. You fill it with a bunch of walls, a bunch of Defenders to draw into more walls, more Defenders. You play them, you swing out with an army of 0/5s that are now, well, 5/5s. The reason I chose Arkadys is that currently she only costs about $6 on Card Kingdom, and again, the deck list is fairly simple. You can run additional cards that do what she does, such as Huatli, the Sun's Heart, or Teo the Shield Mage to create some walls as a Planeswalker. You can run cards such as Bear Umbra, or Wall of Denial is a good wall you can run. There are a bunch of walls. Wall of Frost. You can even run tech you wouldn't think of, like Tetsuko, Umezawa Fugitive, where creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. So, your army of 5/5 walls now becomes an army of unblockable 5/5 walls. Or some even dirtier tech, running board wipes like Slaughter the Strong, where you choose total power of 4 or less, and then sacrifice all other creatures for each player. While all your walls have a power of 0, Arkadys' 3 fits perfectly into that requirement for Slaughter the Strong, and you get to keep on living. Or Dusk to Dawn, where Dusk destroy creatures with power 3 or greater. Sure, you will sadly lose your commander to this, but all your walls stay intact, and if you're running cards that are in there to do the exact same thing as Arkadys, this might not be a big problem. Again, I'm sure you can figure out how to build this deck for yourself. There's some good Defenders. Other than that, I'll let you go onto different websites, EDH and such, to figure out how to build this deck for yourself, but it is fairly simple. Number 6 on our list is Experiment Crash. Crash is a 4/6 ooze mutant that costs 2 green, blue, blue, with the abilities that read, Experiment Crash has all activated abilities of each other creature with a 1/1 counter on it. Tap, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Just by reading the 2 abilities on this creature, you know exactly what it wants to do. Put a bunch of counters on things, and have those things have good activated abilities so it can steal them and buff itself. On top of that, both versions of Experiment Crash are only selling for less than $3 on Card Kingdom, and it's a fairly simple deck to build. You run cards such as Zhang Yangu to put counters on things, or even that new Scarecrow from Modern Horizons that untaps itself and puts a counter on it. So that way, Experiment Crash taps to put a counter on something, untaps to get a counter, taps to put a counter on something, untaps to get a counter, and can start a snowball effect of everything just getting massive. And Simic Ascendancy is a good card to run. It lets you put counters on things, and then whenever you hit enough 1/1 counter, you just win the game. Sure, there are some expensive cards you could run in here, such as Doubling Season, but you don't have to. You could run cards like Rishkar, so all your creatures with 1/1 counters now give you mana. Altered Ego could even be fun, to steal something someone else controls, and throw a bunch of counters on it, so now you have those abilities. There are so many different cards you can put into this deck. Pretty much any Hydra's fair game. So this deck, honestly, very simple to build. Only problem is hitting that 6 mana to get out your commander, but you're in green, so thankfully ramp isn't that hard to come by. Here we are at the halfway point. Number 5, Arabo, Roar of the World. Arabo is a 5/5 cat avatar that costs 3 green, white with the abilities that read, Eminence. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if Arabo, Roar of the World, is in the command zone or on the battlefield, another target cat you control gets +3/+3 until end of turn. And whenever another cat you control attacks, you may pay 1 green, white. If you do, it gains trample and gets +X until end of turn, where X is its power. Just by reading this, it has 2 abilities, and you can tell automatically what Arabo wants to do. Fill the board with cats, get them big, and swing in for a bunch. It's a fairly simple deck to build around. I chose Arabo because he's currently costing $149 USD on Card Kingdom, and his oversized card only costs 63 cents. Super easy to get your hands on. And like I've said, the deck is fairly simple to build. You can run such cards as King of the Pride from Modern Horizons to boost all your cats. You can run pretty much any Johnny for maximum flavor win. You can run Regal Caracal from Amonkhet, Leonin War Leader, Pride Sovereign. There are so many different cards in here that are just powerful. You can even run some cats that you wouldn't even think of to give yourself some extra value. Prowling Serpapard is going to make none of your cats counterable. Felidar Sovereign could just win you the game out of nowhere. Spirit of the Hearth is going to give you hexproof to make sure nothing bad happens. Honestly, I feel like this deck is very simple to build. You just find the cats you want, stick them in a pile. So long as the cat is somewhat decent, I feel like it could find a happy, solid spot in your Arabo deck. Number 4 is yet another Simic card, Tishana, Voice of Thunder. Tishana is a star merfolk shaman that costs 5 green blue with the abilities Tishana, Voice of Thunder's power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size, and when Tishana enters the battlefield, draw a card for each creature you control. So, you can automatically tell what Tishana wants to do. 2 things. Fill your hand with as many cards as possible, fill the battlefield with as many creatures as possible. Being fairly recent and standard legal, Tishana is only costing about $250 on Card Kingdom, which is one major reason I would recommend it for people just getting in. She is super simple to build around. You could run such good cards as Beast Whisperer. While you're filling the battlefield with creatures, you're filling your hand with cards. Tatiova, Benthic Druid, so whenever you're playing lands to help you ramp, you're drawing cards. You could go for the Merfolk synergy. You could run Merfolk Mistbinder or Cold-Eyed Silky. You could run Seafloor Oracle, which would fit into both strategies. Cards like Forerunner of the Heralds would be interesting. There are so many ways to build this deck, and each of them is very unique, which is why I would recommend this card as a commander to new players. Number 3 on our list is a bit of a popular card, Edgar Markov. Edgar is a 4/4 vampire knight that costs 3 red, white, black with the abilities that read Imminence. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar Markov is in the command zone or on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. And whenever Edgar Markov attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each vampire you control. He has first strike and haste. So you can tell just by reading these 2 abilities, there's 2 things he wants to do. Cast a bunch of vampire spells to create even more vampires, and then swing in to pump all the vampires. The only problem with him is that since he is very popular, he costs $10.99 currently on Card Kingdom, but the oversized card is only 79 cents. And there are a lot of powerful cards you can be running in this deck. There's Cordial Vampire, the most polite man you'll ever meet. Or the new Sorin Imperious Bloodlord just to drop out vampires onto the battlefield. Legion Lieutenant to pump all your vampires. Sanctum Seeker. Sanctum Seeker is a bomb in this deck. A Forerunner of the Legion. Dig up any vampire you need. Yeheni Undying Partisan. Alinda the Duskrose, or even Gifted Aetherborn, one of the most powerful standard cards. Bishop of Rebirth. A vampire that lets you take cards and put them back onto the battlefield. Or Vona, Butcher of Magan. You can just start paying life to destroy things. That being said, don't discount red. You have Falconwraith Gorger to give all your vampire cards madness. So if you're forced to discard them, you just get to cast them. There's Stormkirk Noble that can't be blocked by humans and then deals damage to put counters on itself. Lycia Sanguine Tribune. Sure, cost 8. It costs 1 less if you've gained life per life, and you can pay life to put counters on her. There are a lot of powerful vampires, and you just get to filter through your cards, find them all, stick them in your deck, and play with them. And a commander that is super powerful and will make all your vampires beautiful. Number 2 on our list is an incredibly fun card, and that is Gishath, Sun's Avatar. Gishath is a 7/6 dinosaur avatar with trample, vigilance, and haste that costs 5 red, green, white, with the abilities that read, whenever Gishath, Sun's Avatar, deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library, put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, you can tell just by reading the one ability he has what he wants to do. He wants to get out, get big, and get big dinosaurs out with him. That is power. Sure, he is expensive, and will continue to be even more expensive each time he's sent back. But you're in green, you have the ramp, and he comes in with haste, swings, and you get automatically a line of blockers to help you until you can reach the point you need to be at. Gish currently costs $5 on Card Kingdom, which is a bit high if you're just trying to get in and don't want to invest too much, but honestly, it is very worth it for this deck. You just get to go through, pick dinosaurs, and throw them in. The new Marauding Raptor, powerful. Huatli's Raptor, you get to proliferate, so if you're throwing counters on him, you get to make him even bigger. Regisaur Alpha, Kinjali Sunwing. There's so many good dinosaurs. You can even run some humans. Forerunner of the Empire to go grab any dinosaur, like, I don't know, Regisaur Alpha. Optech Huntsmaster to make him cheaper. Atsakan Seer, mana ramp, and brings dinosaurs back from the graveyard. There's so many good cards. From Ixalan alone, Ripjaw Raptor draws your cards. Silverclad Ferocidon removes creatures. Verdant Sun's Avatar gains you life. Zatalpa is Zatalpa. Nuff said. Atalian Galta, Burning Sun's Avatar to do some damage. Polyraptor just to be annoying and fill the battlefield. Wayward Swordtooth lets you play multiple spells. Thrashing Brontodon's gonna be removal. Thundering Spineback is gonna buff all your dinosaurs and create some. There's even more humans you can run too, just from Ixalan. Kinjali's Collar to make dinosaurs cost less. Drover of the Mighty gets +2/+2, makes it a 2-cost 3/3 just for having a dinosaur, and it ramps you. Don't forget the ever-frustrating Carnage Tyrant, but feel free to look outside of Ixalan too. You have Gigantosaurus, a 5-cost 10/10. Sure, it's all green, that could be a bit tricky to get out, but Gishath doesn't care about mana cost whenever he's throwing stuff onto the battlefield. Rampaging Brontodon. All the lands you're getting out to get all your dinosaurs out is going to make him absurdly big. Honestly, this deck is great for new players, especially if you're going from Standard into Commander, because you already have a lot of dinosaurs from Ixalan alone. All you have to do is get Gishath, throw them in the pile, and you're good to go. Only problem is mana ramp and card draw, which you can find some really cheap options for. This deck is just fun because you get to play a bunch of big, scary, powerful dinosaurs. And who doesn't like dinosaurs? Here we are, top of the list, number 1. This is a card I've been helping my friend build his first Commander deck with, so I strongly stand by this opinion, and that is Omnath, Locust of the Royal. Now, this Omnath is a 3/3 elemental that costs 1 green, blue, red, with the abilities: when Omnath, Locust of the Royal, enters the battlefield, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of elementals you control, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target elemental you control. If you control 8 or more lands, draw a card. Just by reading these two fairly different but fairly similar abilities, you can tell what he wants to do. Landfall and big scary elementals. That is great for a new deck. It's easy to tell. You have the two mechanics that are both different but have some light synergy, and it's not as confusing as Tesa with how much math goes into aristocrats. Omnath does cost $16.99 right now on Card Kingdom, which is a bit absurd, but it is a very powerful card and a very simple card to build around that I feel like that number is worth it. And like I said, the deck's simple. You run big elementals, you run something like Risen Reef, you run something like Zendikar's Royal as an enchantment, you can even run Avenger of Zendikar, Sylvan Awakening, Undergrowth Champion, Multani. While this isn't the deck with the most varieties of way to build it, it's fairly powerful, fairly simple, fairly straightforward deck to build. You can run the Cavaliers, Master of Waves, Young Elemental, Ingot Chewer for removal. Bloomhulk will proliferate, making it where all the counters you're putting on stuff from Omnath is now increased. You can run the all-time famous card, Bane of Progress. Honestly, if you're looking into building your first Commander deck, you don't want to buy a precon, you want to build something fairly straightforward, I think Omnath is the way to go. Now, here at the end of the video, I just want to remind you all that these are just my opinions, and why I do stand by them. I do think that there's some give and take. This isn't a comprehensive or a complete list of all the best commanders for new players. I didn't want to overlap with too much tribal theme or anything like that. So, if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. That way other people will know. And honestly, this video is mostly made for, if this is a commander you're looking at, to kind of bounce it off of, just so you'll be able to tell if it's a good deck to build around. And if you're building your first Commander deck, don't forget to check out my playlist here of Commander cards you should be playing but aren't. Or if you've chosen any of the decks that are blue, learn how to play counter spells here. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know whenever I post new videos. And thank you for watching.